Hey friends, thanks for taking time to listen in on a conversation Dick and I had with Amy, Braden, and Matt Westfall. During winter break, Dick and I had the opportunity to speak with parents Amy and Matt Westfall and their son, young American racer Braden. As you'll hear, we discuss the role of family support and sacrifice in a racer's development, the importance of karting, how to navigate parenting in a high-risk, high-cost sport, how to build community, character, and branding, and the harsh realities of money and marketing. Before we get to our conversation, though, I need to ask, can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Okay, Dick, I think I am super excited for this interview, and it's largely because I really love the 3 people that are, and this is the first time I think, no, that's not true. We've had a 3-person interview, but this is a very unique 3-person interview.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really excited because these are people from your world that you've been willing to share with me. And I've just come to really respect and kind of, I guess the word is love.
hmm
And I'm so glad that they were willing to have this conversation with us. So I want you to introduce them before we get into the conversation.
Okay, I'd be delighted to. So, a few years ago, we were out at North Texas Kartways doing a couple of videos that were called Unsung Heroes. And we had gone in and I'd gone to the leadership of the club and said, "Hey, give me half a dozen women that are racer moms that wind up doing more than just being there supporting their kid racing." And so a list of names was given to me, and the name at the top of the list was Amy Westfall, which was funny because I had been using Amy for pictures of me racing because I have an ego and I like to look at pictures of me racing. So Amy's a very talented photographer and graphic artist. So we wound up interviewing her. And one thing led to another. And over the last few years, our family's become very good friends with the Westfalls, Amy, Matt, and their son, Braden. Braden is, in my opinion, a very talented up and coming young racer. I think that if he gets the right kind of breaks, I think he has every opportunity to one day be a professional racing driver. But we all know that that's a tough road to navigate. And it not only requires a really good program, but it requires a little bit of good fortune and not just mom and dad behind them, but lots of people supporting them. Anyway, over the past 3 years, I would say that I've seen Braden develop from a guy that was a consistent front runner in club racing to now a guy who is running in the bigger state and regional races right at the pointy end of the grid. And as he gets more and more into the national competition, he clearly is developing as a driver because with each step, the competition just gets more brutal. So, anyway, I'm really proud of what he's accomplished so far. And I fully expect some great things from him coming up in 2026. So, yeah, just delighted to have the Westfalls join us tonight.
Well, I have to agree with so much of what you're saying. And if anything, I'm looking forward to this conversation because I don't think people fully grasp what young racers and their families have to do
Oh,
to
yeah.
achieve their dreams and their willingness to share their story and hopefully educate our audience and inspire our audience, I think is really just another testament to their character and why we're very, I would say, blessed to have them as a part of the racing community. So
Yep.
thank you, Amy, Braden, and Matt, for taking time out of your very busy lives to share your story.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think actually, I know most people would say, let's have the racer get started and talk to us, but I want to focus first with you guys, Amy and Matt, the parents, because I think, especially because you can tell us a little bit about Braden, But I think that it's often an unsung story of the parents of racers. And I think that that would help us to really understand from your perspective why and how you're supporting your racers' dreams. So, Matt, Amy, do you want to introduce yourselves a little bit? And then, if anything, I'd love for you to let us know as an audience, like many people may not know if, that when you're watching a race, that it's really the parents that have enabled the racer to pursue this dream. And so, do you come from a racing background? Do you not? Like, those are some of the things I'd love for you to just kind of unpack for us to begin with.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Braden's dad, Matt. As far as the racing background, I do not have a racing background. I'm sure Amy will say shortly. From a very young age, Braden's always been in behind the wheel, like his power toys and little cars, and always into cars. We have moved a few times throughout his young life, and one day we found a little track here in Texas called North Texas Karters, and they did free demo rides. So they provided all the safety equipment. So we went out there and he fell in love with it. And maybe Amy can kind of go a little more into why Braden wants to be a race car driver.
Yeah. So I'm Amy. I'm Braden's mom. And Matt's absolutely right. This has been his dream since he probably came home from the hospital. But from a racing background, I think my dad's been a racing enthusiast, so his grandfather from his young age. And so I grew up going to dirt racing, Indy, and that's always been his passion as a spectator and just kind of being involved where he can. And so I think he helped introduce Braden to that world a little bit, but it was when we came to Texas that he really said he wanted to try. And what we ran into was a difficult process. He's always been very small because he was premature. And so finding somewhere for him to try that opportunity was limited based on just his size and weight. So North Texas Carters was one of the only places that offered a test drive in a size that he could even fit. So that's where we started and we fell in love. And we met such a community that kind of helped take us from nothing to something.
So, how old was he when he started? When you say we wanted to try?
Right when he turned 7 is when we started that journey. So it was, yeah, he turned 7 in December, and I think it was a January. We went out on a 70-degree January day in Dallas and was able to get that test ride.
And how old is Braden now?
He's 14.
Okay. So this is a 7-year journey. Like when most parents are thinking about other sports or elementary school into middle school, you guys are putting your child into a cart and saying, okay, let's see this desire if it actually translates onto the actual track.
Yes, that's correct. So, we didn't really understand at the beginning what we were getting into. I think
Nobody does.
Braden, Braden's granddad kind of warned us that like once you get in, like you get sucked in and it can take every bit of what you have. And we've definitely experienced those things, but there's the element of I wouldn't trade it for any other sport. Sitting on the sidelines at a soccer game or a soccer tournament is nothing like being under the tent, changing tires together because you got to rush back out. And every bit of our family is involved in making that happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was thinking. And for many people who don't come from a racing background, like me especially, it's been a learning curve to realize for parents who maybe the norm around them is to put your kid into a little league and it's a little bit more of a passive observer role. But what I see in the racing community, especially in karting, is the parents are right there alongside their child, enabling them to actually get out there and race and practice and utilize their track time. So it's a constant thinking through the tires and the fluids and all the different things you have and getting the transport of the cart actually to where it needs to be if it's race day or track time, all that kind of stuff, which is very different when you think about a parent who's maybe doing soccer, you just throw soccer balls and the cleats and all that stuff into a bag and you just head home. It's much more conducive to our very active lives, but you guys have to truly probably carve out a lot or it drives your schedule. Is that correct in my assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. That is correct. One of the things you'll hear a lot of in racing and karting is seat time is the number one most important thing for a young racer or an accomplished racer. So yeah, when it comes to traditional sports like soccer and baseball, he has participated in those. And yeah, it is a much more passive type. You maybe have practice once, maybe twice a week and a game on the weekend, but those are a couple hours. But when you prepare the cart, like during the week, we're in the garage preparing the cart, we're getting it ready or doing those things so that then we can haul the cart up to the track or wherever your local track is. Sometimes, you're lucky and you're within an hour. Some people have to drive multiple hours to get to a track to practice. So yeah, you definitely have to be prepared to schedule almost a whole day every time. And then when you're done, you have to reverse and you have to pack everything up, clean it up, and take it back home. So yeah, it's not quite a pick up and go type of sport.
One thing that I'd add to this, and just to add a little bit of color to it, I started racing, of course, 50 some odd years ago. And it was really not that much different, except that we didn't haul our stuff around in trailers. We hauled them around in the back of a pickup truck, which a lot of people, heck, I still do that today. But at the end of the day, there were so many races that I went to where it was just me and my dad against all the other drivers and their dads. My dad sadly passed away at a young age. I am so grateful that I got to go and be in a sport where we were actually on the same team together. And I think that's one of the beauties of karting is that the drivers, I'm going to use the word, are forced to be teammates with their parents. And there's not many sports where you can say that you could do that.
I think that's such a great insight. And what a transference of like legacy and values that can come from that kind of
Yep.
close relationship. And if anything, it's kind of a bygone era where it used to be that like you apprenticed with your parent to do your trade and kept those things going
Mm,
through generations, but in this is one of those legacy elements of it, and then the community side of that. So that's really good. Thank you for sharing that, Dick, because I would have
sure.
never made that connection. So let me ask you guys this. I'm assuming Braden said something to you guys of like, okay, mom and dad, I want to do this. I don't want to just kind of go once in a while, but I actually want to pursue motorsport or karting. I want to be a race car driver. Like, what was your first thought? Was it the finances, the safety of this? As you noted, he was a preemie, so that affected his size and weight. Was it the time? Was it something else? And then how did you convince yourself to let your child? Because I think that's something that's often underappreciated when we see, especially Formula One drivers, that they started their racecraft development as a child. And so I guess it's the lawyer in me goes, there's certain aspect that the child has the competence and ability to like say I can do this, but truly it's the parent who has to make that judgment call. Is this appropriate? And how did you guys weigh that all out and come to the conclusion that this was worth doing?
So from the get-go, since we had no racing background or very limited experience with racing, we always made rule number one was safety. From the equipment to being able to handle the cart, even on the test drive, like they have to show that they know the gas and the brake and they can, stop and get around safely. So from the time he started, we said rule number one, safety. And to this day, rule number one is safety above all else. Like he is our child, as you mentioned, and we want him back in one piece when he comes off the track, and the same for all his competitors. So given that they are children, safety is our number one. Amy can probably talk to some other things, obviously, that go into allowing your child to pursue a racing career or journey.
I think 100% safety has always been our number one. And then the element of fun is usually rule number two. So if we're not having fun, then we shouldn't be doing it anymore. Some of the other things that, you go into is, I think we're unique as we both have a competitive spirit. And so the energy that we can kind of, evaluate with him is if he's engaged in that and he's excited and he wants to keep pushing, then it's hard to stop him. And a lot of times we'll make him choose. If we had other activities, like he played soccer, he played baseball, the list goes on. And we always let him choose if he has multiple activities that are converging of is what does he really want to do? And every single time I'm going to pick the racetrack. You got to a point where as a parent, you can't really fight that passion. You just have to embrace it and trust that he's going to make the right decisions as you continue to help him grow.
I mean, that's got to be a really hard battle as parents. Like you know, we want him to pursue, but then we also know that there are risks and you do want him to have fun. And then if anything, you have to sacrifice a lot, I'm assuming, because I know that, motorsport isn't cheap. That's just one element that you're sacrificing. I wonder, could you share a little bit about that, like the challenges that you face in saying, hey, we want to encourage and nurture this potential in our child?
Yeah, absolutely. So some challenges we face, I mean, like you've mentioned, the financial piece is definitely challenging when it is mostly a family funded thing when you're starting out, and throughout the years it's still affecting your personal finances, and we can go into things of that nature. But then again, it is very rewarding for all these sacrifices, but it's hard on him and us as far as like friends, because when they're hanging out at the weekend, when you go to bigger races, you're gone for 4 or 5 days. So you're not seeing people. They're not really familiar with racing, so they're always really surprised to hear that someone races, and what they view as a go-kart is usually one of the rental carts with bumpers and things of that nature. So if they are lucky enough to see it in person, then they get a new appreciation for it. So yeah, there are quite a few sacrifices. Amy, do you have any?
I celebrated my 40th birthday at the racetrack, and everything I wanted was a trip, but then at the same time I'm with my family and seeing through my son's eyes how excited he is to be a part of something much bigger, and that sacrifice is worth it. We sacrifice personal time off to go to these races, and I think that's been an ongoing battle through having the careers that we've tried to have. Is you only get so many PTO days, and they're limited on every place that you work, and most of the time they're already scheduled out for the year through the races that we do, and we can't even usually get more than 5 or 6 big races because, like Matt said, you have to show up for move-in day, prepping the carts on site. You have to then be there for the practice days. And all of that leads into the race weekend. And then when it's over, you have to then get back home. And so sometimes if that's across the country, then you've got another travel day ahead of you. So that in itself is sacrifice. And so having friends that can at least respect that, you definitely have to filter because not everybody understands or wants to understand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think, especially when you again compare it to more traditional sports, parents who may say, "Oh, I'm a football booster." It's Friday night, maybe Friday during the day. They get off a little early. They can go to the game. And maybe it's a Thursday night practice or things like that, but they may not fully grasp that this is, as you noted, you're prepping the cart during the week after you got home from work, and then you have to do all this kind of traveling. I think that coupled with what Dick so wisely noted of competing with your parent, it's a lot of time that you guys get to really build your family together. I could see that being positive, and then also at times you're like, oh, we're all over each other all the time. We need a little bit of a socialization outside of ourselves, and having friends and family that can understand and support that. I could see why that would be very important and valuable to you, that they would see that it may seem odd to others. I guess I can in some ways empathize with, since I don't come from a racing family or racing background, when people find out that this is a passion for me, not to actually go out and race, but to support the racing community and be a part of it. they kind of give you that like head tilt, like, really? What does that look like? So how do you guys manage that, especially for a young child who needs to have social development and, even education? How do you balance all of that?
It's tricky, and Braden is very social. So we have encouraged him to stay in, somewhat of a normal school environment, if you will, so that he can continue with engagement with his peers and learning to understand the broader passion for other things. And it also has helped him grow in other areas with opportunities. That's something that we've really strive to kind of make sure that he still is balanced in everything, because we want to make sure that he is still his best self. And we get a lot of support from the school system that we're in, and the teachers and the principals, and Braden has dedicated his efforts to make sure that if he needs to stay before or after school for extra study time or more testing, or he does that to make sure that he doesn't slip on his grades, and pursuing that is just as important as his passion.
Oh, that's so good to hear, because that kind of support would be invaluable as you guys are doing all of this, especially because you want him to be. I say this, I feel like I'm putting words in your mouth, but I feel like that's what I've ascertained from you guys, just from how you carry yourself, and is that you want him to be a well-rounded individual and a contributing member of society when he's a full-fledged adult, and that this is a unique and special opportunity for you to develop him in this way that is more non-traditional. So I'm glad to hear that you have people that are supporting that and making sure that he is developing well, which leads me to my other question, which is, now more than ever, racers are really having to develop like what I would call the full package, not only their racecraft, but their social media, their sponsorship, they're doing media training, knowing how to manage their finances, their physical health, mental health, all of that. What are your thoughts about how, even at this age, are you thinking about that kind of stuff? Or do you feel like that needs to come later on down the line?
I would say definitely like you do have to have a full package, as Richard was talking about earlier. There is things like marketability and all these things, but those come with age, experience. They come down the road. We're far from perfect, but like from the time he first started racing, like a lot of people want to jump into, oh, we need sponsors, we need the social media, we need our YouTubes, we need our all that good stuff. But that all comes with time, I feel like. But now that he's at this age where he's understanding the impact of social media and how important, things like having a website, making the right posts, and the responsibility that comes with whatever you put out there is out there. I feel like this is a good time, but I feel like some people put a big emphasis on it, the younger ages. And sometimes what I miss most was some of those younger ages. You don't realize at the time, but there was a lot less stress, and it's serious because it is a motor sport and there's always risk involved. But I feel like we took it sometimes way too serious. I think as far as all that, like I think that comes with time. And as they develop and become more mature and take it more seriously, want to take the next steps, that's when you should start doing that. And now Amy can talk about his marketing.
So, to Matt's point, we did start all of that at the beginning. One of the things that we felt was most important is making sure that he did have social media, YouTube, and online presence, just because of his Super B racing title, I guess, or nickname. It's not,
Brand.
yeah, his entire brand was built in the NICU. And I know that's hard for some, because only some people that we've met here have only known him since he was 7 and not his entire life. But he was Super B when he was a preemie. And so when we started this, Braden told us that he wanted to be number 48. And he told me what he wanted as his logo. And at that time, it was a Super B, and it was a lightning bolt with a checkered flag in the lightning bolt. And that's what his original stickers were, his first t-shirts were. And the whole family was supportive, and we kind of built that brand around that. But as we grew his social media, we didn't focus just on racing. We focused on the best and balanced human that he can be. So his kindness, his resilience, his passion for just life itself and others. And that's what we kind of focus on, is the entire brand is not just a racer, but just what the Super Bee means. And to Matt's point, we want to share that with others as much as we can in a way that's relatable. And maybe other kids that are looking to get into this sport or other sports and don't have the confidence to kind of stick with those values, because there's so much out there to kind of steer you in different directions, that that's really our goal for the brand, is the lifestyle.
That's so good. Okay, so I have one final question in this kind of topic area, and then I want to hand it over to Dick to ask a question. But let me ask you this. When you talk about branding and things like that, we think of like sponsorship opportunities or similar ways to like finance the dream. Like, how do you navigate that? I mean, did you guys have like the experience background to know how to do that, or do you feel like you're learning that along the way? The reason I ask is because whenever money is involved, you have to be circumspect and make sure people are being fair and honest. And I just wonder, how do you ensure that people are educated and not ignorant and potentially taken advantage of because people see the hope in the parents' eyes or in the racer's eyes and they get taken advantage of? How do you feel about that aspect of trying to help a racer go forward?
We explored and had partners early on, and coming from a design and marketing background, you have to make it a partnership. So there's always got to be some type of an incentive when you approach others. So that's kind of how we started. And Braden will probably speak more to this, but he's done everything from setting up his go-kart at a car show and just introducing himself and having a donation jar and passing out stickers, to myself going to a local winery and offering pictures for their social media in exchange for support, to having goals set. So if we worked with a State Farm agent and they said, if you get so many referrals, you get X amount of dollars towards that. And so it was always something was better than nothing. And the partnerships and the things that we've learned along the way have been invaluable. And the relationships that we have is something that we'll always have. I mean, we truly appreciate that. But when you go to ask for things, I don't think people truly understand how much things cost. And so that's why we've always been, whatever you feel is right, we're very appreciative of anything, but the amount is exponential compared to what you kind of find yourself in.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think you're navigating it well. Dick, do you have any questions that you want to
Yeah,
throw out?
I just think between Matt and Amy, could you kind of describe the whole preemie experience? Because I've heard most of the story, maybe not all of it, but most of the story. I think that it would be pretty inspiring to hear that for our listeners. If you don't mind, if you could share that a little bit.
I'll let Matt speak first from his perspective.
Yeah, so he obviously was born at 26 weeks, but
Wow.
prior to even that, Amy was in the hospital for 2 weeks. They had stopped her preterm labor, and she had to do a lot of stuff to keep him in as long as she did to make it to 26 weeks. When he finally was born, he weighed 1 pound, 11 ounces, and he was 13 inches long. I mean, my first memory of him was he was, once the doctors did their thing, he held my pinky and his whole hand wrapped around the tip of my pinky. He was so small. It was quite an experience. He's our one and only. So that was kind of after we went through everything. But he ended up spending 88 days in the neonatal intensive care unit. That's what NICU stands for, in Columbus, Ohio. And then he came home. I can't remember how much he weighed, maybe like 5 pounds, 6 pounds, something like that, even when he came home. So he was always a little guy. But while we were there, I think I could count on one hand how many days we didn't see him. So unfortunately, Amy wasn't able to, take 88 days worth of maternity leave. So she was working, I was working. We'd either both go or one of us would go, the other would go. It was quite difficult because you would work and then your time was at the NICU. If you weren't working, you were at the NICU. Probably my most emotional day I can remember is leaving the hospital without my baby to, stay in the NICU, but at least knowing that he was in the hands of the NICU nurses, they are just a special brand of angel because what they do for NICU babies is unbelievable. They're just amazing.
And y'all would have been in about your mid-20s when all this was going on?
Yes, that's correct. I think
Wow.
28 maybe.
I know where my emotional maturity was when I was that age, and there's no way. No way, because I was quite a bit older before my first was born. So incredible story. Amy, how about your side of it?
I think your mom stuff kicks in pretty quickly when that happens. And, when you're at the doctor's office and they're like, have you thought about where you're going to deliver? And you say, well, I think so, but we haven't done the tour yet. And they're like, well, you need to go there. And you're like, oh, that
Oh,
sounds great. And so the first memory is something's wrong. I have to go to the hospital. I have to get my husband to meet me there. I don't really know what's going on. I didn't follow any of the directions they gave me. And I had no idea that I was in labor. I just kept asking why they were, going nuts. And then I was stuck on bed rest for 2 weeks. And that was really difficult to
hmm.
be in that position. And then again, when they're like, oh, it's time, if it's happening, you're like, okay, I guess I don't have a choice, right? It was my worst nightmare. I didn't want to have a C-section. I didn't want to be in an operating room. I hated hospitals and I was, living there. But you just go into this different mindset of like, we can do this, and we did. And leaving the hospital without your child is still vivid in my core memories. But we were so blessed that the worst thing trying to get him out of, I call baby prison, was fighting the doctor about him eating. They wanted him to eat a certain amount in order to be discharged consistently. And he was just eat when I feel like it, don't eat other times. And we're now at 14 and that's still how he operates.
Hmm.
So we laugh that if we would have listened too much to the doctors, we'd probably still be in the NICU.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
I
thanks for
just,
sharing that.
oh, so sorry. Go ahead, Dick.
No, no, no. I just really appreciate them sharing that. That's great.
Yeah. Like I'm sitting here just kind of in awe of you guys. How many years had y'all been married by the time he was born?
2 or 3? I don't, three?
Three.
Three.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like Dick noting your age, but then also I mean, these are all things that are just really inspiring. And then when I think about who Braden is, I'm like, I can see where it's coming from. Like, and it only makes me love him even more and really want to get us to that part. I mean, Braden, first off, you've been super patient to let us talk to mom and dad. And when they talk about you being the one and only, I think if anything, I'm sitting there going, yeah, no wonder they're focused on his safety, and as any parent would be, but even more as the one and only, they love you, and it's so obvious that all three of you love each other. And if I would love to get to ask you some questions, are you ready?
Yeah, I am very.
Okay, you've got a lot to say.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, good. Well, I was going to say you're Mr. Social. As mom said, I've witnessed it and experienced it. So I'm really excited for us to get to ask you some questions. So let's first talk about the fact that you just were so patient in letting me interview your parents. So they're not the only people, your extended family, I know, and you have friends and other supporters who've been really focused on your development. So what I really want to do is help the audience understand all that it entails for you as a 14-year-old who started racing as a 7-year-old. How do you develop your racecraft?
When it started, I was just messing around like dilly dally, didn't know what I was doing. But as the years went on, I progressed and trying new things. We got our first sim when I was 9, and started loving that as well. And now I'm 14, and I got sim in my room, and I barely got enough room to walk around in my room, but having a sim in there, it's all worth it.
So,
And it
like when you say the first sim, was it like the full-fledged seat and pedals and all that, or was it the hand console?
it was like the hand console.
Okay, but now, based off of what you just said, it's a full
Rig.
system. Oh, wow. Look at you. So you're living and breathing racing.
Yeah. And then when
Nice.
I'm at the track, most of the time not by myself and I'm getting coached by supporters and people that want to help me and other race drivers that are trying to help other drivers. So I love how it all connects in that way. And when I'm not on track, I'm learning my racecraft with my racing friends on the sim.
That's great. So what are some of the races and competitions that you've done?
It's hard to say all of them, but I've been to Charlotte. I've raced inside the track there. It was
Nice.
last year. I did it January last year. And then I've raced in Indiana at a track
Nice.
called Newcastle. I've also raced in Vegas
Mm-hmm.
for the SCUSA Super Nationals. It was 27 I raced at, and that was my last actual racing cadet mini Swift, which is a two-stroke but for cadet size. I'm in a KA full size. Those are some notable ones, and then the ones all over Texas and in New Orleans, where one of our friends lives at.
Nice. So why do you want to be a racer? Like, what's your hope for your future?
It's kind of hard to say in a way, but it's just as soon as you start, it's like you get sucked into that rabbit hole and you cannot stop.
So you're 14 now, and let's say you're 18, 4 years from now. Where do you hope that, like, if everything fell, like, as Dick said at the beginning, some of it is the effort and just sheer will of doing it, but then you also have to have the cards fall in the right place. If all the cards fell, because I have no question that you have sheer will and determination and ability, but if all the cards fell in the right place, where would you hope that it would fall? Like, what would you love to see yourself doing
Right
by the
now,
time you're
I
18, 21, that kind of range?
I would hope to be racing Formula cars or dirt, any of those. Definitely not in karting, but I'd love to see myself up in the levels a lot more.
Okay, that's really good. So tell me this. I'm really risk averse, meaning I don't like risk. That's why I respect those of you who are racers. And your mom and dad, I think it was dad who said you were born out of the womb with risk tolerance. I wonder in your brain when you're on the track, do you have to really think about the risk or you just go? Is it just feel natural to you just to go fast and do it well? Or do you have to think, like, do you have to tell yourself, I gotta overcome any fear? Does that question make sense to you?
When you're going to a race week, you always got that little sense of, come on, I gotta do good, you gotta do this, and I just hope I can finish the race and have fun. But as soon as you get in that cart, everything else goes out the window and you're just driving and just doing the best you can trying to win.
Okay, I like that. So Dick sent me two videos of you where he said he gave me the disclaimer. He said you might lose it, like freak out watching them because what it was is you had a crash and you were ejected from the cart. And the other one was where you were kind of slightly unconscious for a moment. In those moments, do you feel afterwards, like, do you get scared going back in, or do you just kind of go, oh, it happened. I'm gonna keep going. I know it happens to everybody at some point.
After it happens, it's like when I flew out my go-kart, I'm like, well, I'm not hurt. Let's keep going.
I
But
love
when
it.
I'm in a country, it's like, oh yeah, I see. The doctors say I can't, so I'm not. But I'm still gonna go to the racetrack, still gonna support, still gonna watch. When you're at the racetrack, you always want to go back, even if something bad happens. As my mom and dad love to say, anything can happen. Just be able to adapt to it.
Yeah, and I think that's a principle in life, right? If we allowed fear to hold us back, a lot of us would miss out some great opportunities. And so you're taking it to a higher level than most adults probably ever do. And so at 14, well, starting at 7 and now doing it all the way to 14 and hopefully for many more years, that I think that's one of the many things that inspires me as a person who, as I said, is risk averse. So I think you already answered this, that you see karting as your entry into motorsports. Like you don't see yourself continuing to compete in the karting discipline. You'd like to move into cars? Is that correct in understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And so, what options are available to you, and are finances a factor in choosing which options you pursue? Mom and Dad, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to.
From my point of view, it's like you think about it, but when you're a racer, you don't really think about it because whoever's there for you, they got your back. Whatever happens, whatever happens. But I want to race into cars. I want to go anything dirt, anything work, and I love it. And my mom and dad just put towards the passion to help me get there and pursue my dreams. On top of
Okay.
that,
Yeah, I would say we've thought about moving past the karting world. I think that's always been on our minds, even when we first started, is like, where do you go next? We all know this is the foundation to understand racecraft, to understand kind of how the motors and in the carts work together, and how does that translate into cars, and thinking about that versus the racecraft and the safety and all the things considered. But finances are always the limiting factor for us. And so I think that's our biggest challenge as we think about the next step, is what is really the opportunity and how do we get there? Because I don't think it's an ability to self-fund anymore.
That makes sense. I mean, you have to explore all the different options. And I want to make sure I ask this follow up so people can understand. You're not saying that karting isn't something that you love and it's a good discipline to have. It's just that this is where your heart is leading you. Like you still would love to be in a cart as well, right? Like I'm reading
yeah.
that carefully. Okay. Yeah. But this is where your dreams are more inside the car instead of a cart.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have one final question that I definitely want to give Dick the floor is, as a young racer, how do you see yourself when you're presenting yourself to others? Do you feel like you're selling yourself or being yourself when you're talking to people?
When I'm talking to people, I'm the person that goes up to them, introduces myself, talks to them, and as you said it, being myself, just being who I am, being the person I am, not trying to be hiding behind a mask, selling myself to other people.
I think that comes across very much in interacting with you. And if anything, I think some of the questions I know that Dick wants to ask will follow up and kind of help give some examples of that. Dick, do you want to start asking your questions?
I think one of the things that has always impressed me about really everything that the Westfalls have been doing with the racing is the fact that they've been pretty darn creative in how they have gone and raised additional funding to go and move up the ladder just within the ranks of karting. Braden made the comment, it went from a mini Swift, which is a cadet chassis, from 2024, and in 2025 stepped into the K100 full-size chassis kind of deal. It's a different world. And with that increase in performance, whether it's the more horsepower, bigger brakes, more tire, all of that, more. Well, guess what? It's more money, right? I've watched them do some pretty creative things. And Braden, one of the things that just so impressed me was the fundraiser that you did at a local Mexican food restaurant. You want to tell us a little bit about that and how that worked?
Yes. So coming back to the brand, my mom and me, we made some shirts, made some hats, and we just had gifts out there. And I brought my helmet, brought my suit, brought my hero cards, and just gave them out to people. And we basically talked to the owner, and he set it all up for me. And it was a bingo night. So basically, set up thing that if you want to come, you can pay. You don't have to. You don't have to play, but you can still come. And we played bingo. I was the announcer. I was being myself. Everybody loved it, and people that won, they get money and they get gifts.
Yeah, so it was a really great deal for the restaurant. It's Olay's, right, in Coppell.
Yes.
And so I thought it was brilliant to go in and approach the owner and say, look, I'm going to bring you more business, but in return, I need this as a fundraiser.
Mhm.
And brought in a lot of people. I mean, there was, my family was there. My son brought one of his buddies, and there was a lot of folks there, and you raised pretty substantial amount of money for a one evening kind of deal. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Racers have done that kind of thing where they, generally speaking, Olays is a marketing asset for you. And so you were able to leverage that marketing asset to benefit the restaurant and yourself as well. So everybody won. And so it was great. I was really impressed with that. But I'll also add that this isn't the only kind of fundraiser that you've done. I know in the past you've done some fundraisers for a local NICU as well, right? Can you tell
Yes,
us a
I
little bit
have.
about that? Can you tell us about that?
So I've always wanted to give back because I'm from the NICU and I'm a kind heart, so I want to give back to the NICUs around here anytime I can. So I basically went to a local park area and we set up a tent. We had teddy bears and stuff, and basically all of the money we raised, we got for books and teddy bears for the NICU kids for Christmas. We do it always around Christmas as gifts for the Happy New Year and Christmas. And after we fundraise them, we bring them to the NICU, take a photo, and we give them to the NICU. And just like how my mom felt when people gave cards and gifts around Christmas to us when I was in the NICU.
That's awesome. That's just a great kind of deal. It has nothing to do with racing, but it has everything to do with your character. And that's just fantastic. Love it. On my YouTube channel, for our listeners, we've had one or two instances where I've had Braden on video with me where he's coaching me. And Braden has no problem coming in and coaching people up because he's hanging out the races, he's watching, he's very observant, and usually knows his way around a racetrack pretty well. And so he's actually helped me, even though we drive vastly different carts. And got a great story where you actually have met people like Zach Brown and several other drivers during like Carb Day at Indianapolis. And one of those guys that you met was Santino Ferrucci, who just happens to live in Dallas, who drives for AJ Foyt. So you met him at Carb Day, and then you bumped into him out at the Dallas Karting Complex. You want to tell us about your relationship, the first time you met Santino, and then how it's all transpired from there?
Yeah. So when I first met him, I saw him. He let me go in his garage, which is really nice. And
And this is at Indianapolis, right?
yes, this is Indianapolis. And he let us come in, let me come in. And I was wearing my DKC hat, and we basically made a connection. And it was just funny how we had that connection in such a small world in racing. And then when I saw him at the DKC race, any racer, they're just normal people and they just do their job. And I just talked to him. He's just racing the kart, having fun. And it's just nice having that connection in a racing world, but not about racing, just being a person.
Yeah. And he's also a preemie, isn't that right?
Yes, he is.
So you've got that connection going on as well. I didn't realize that he was also a member at the Dallas Karting Complex. And to be able to go and be friends with an IndyCar driver, and as I understand it, you coached him as well a little bit.
Yeah, I tried, not trying to get in his hair or anything, but, you know, it's funny just seeing him laugh sometimes when I try to do that.
That's great. I love it. Well, I hope he took your advice on that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. So that's kind of the end of the questions that I had. Sabrina, did you have any more? Did you want to talk through?
I did. I had actually just two more that are really kind of connecting it to the focus of the podcast, right? Like, since we are here talking about, generally we talk about Formula One, I want to get y'all's thoughts a little bit, all three of you, but especially Braden. Like, when you look at the Formula One grid specifically from an American perspective, do you notice that there is an increased attention now in the United States in the audience? And why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of something like Drive to Survive or the new Formula One movie? And do you think that that's actually something like, do you find people now connecting the fact that you're racing in kart and that this is related to the world of Formula One and other motorsport disciplines? Or do you still find them like not fully grasping? Like, has it helped you to educate people as to why you're doing what you're doing?
It has helped me, and I think it spread not just Drive to Survive, but also people. It's just going on TV now sometimes, and people just happen to see it, and there's YouTube as well, and people see it on YouTube. And like a couple years ago, people didn't really know what I was talking about. And now when I say F1, like Max Verstappen, which he's an F1 driver, they're like, "Oh, Max Verstappen, are you Max Verstappen?" Like, it's funny how it's evolved, and it's just I tell them like I race go-karts, and I'm trying to get to race from maybe get in F1, and they're like, "That's cool. I hope you do good."
That's nice. I mean, it's got to feel good that now maybe people may get a little bit of an understanding as to why you and your family are doing all that you're doing to help you achieve your dreams of being a professional race car driver. Maybe we'll see you on the Formula One grid.
Yeah.
That would be
Hope
awesome.
so.
Well, so let me ask and kind of open it to all three of you, especially to you guys, the parents. Do you believe there is a comprehensive pipeline within America getting drivers onto that grid? I know I kind of said that hopefully we'll see you on the grid. It may seem kind of far-fetched to some people who don't understand the complexity of what it takes to get there. But this is something that both Dick, well, all three of us, Dick, John, and I are passionate about and believe in, is that American racers should be on that grid much more than we see. So I wonder, as parents and as a racer, do you think that there is that clear way to get to the grid?
If you would ask me at the like 7 years ago, I'd say, my limited knowledge, it didn't seem possible. It just seemed really far-fetched, not just for Braden to be on the grid, but for Americans in general. But what I've started to notice, I watch a lot of YouTube Kart Chaser, and I'm starting to notice a lot of European drivers in the karting world are even coming over and racing in the States to compete against us. Whereas I felt before, it seemed like we always had to, as Americans, had to go over to Europe and race over there to be taken seriously. But now I feel like there's a reciprocal nature of racing going on. So I'm hopeful, with some changes that F1's making with who's on the grid, that there will be a path, and it doesn't necessarily have to involve developing over in Europe, because people like our family, where we have limited budgets and we just need the right breaks, as you guys had mentioned. I would hope that there'd be a more pipeline based in America rather than just, it seems like you have to be over in Europe, and that is quite an expense. And then talking about being a well-rounded person, it's really hard to you can't miss that much school. So then Braden being so social, you would lose that opportunity. You'd have to be homeschooled or other alternative arrangements. What do you think, Amy?
Well, back to your original question about how it's becoming more popular, I definitely agree with what Matt said. There are more racers coming over here. I think there's a broader understanding of it based from the Drive to Survive. I think the US has added a couple more races, right? We've got not only COTA, but we've got Miami and Vegas as well. And, I think there's some things happening with some considerations from NASCAR and Indy kind of going into teams with Cadillac or whatever. But I think I still feel like for people like us and the kids that I've seen kind of make it further, they do end up living overseas at the age of like 9 or 10, and they just kind of stay put until they get their break and move up that ladder. And if they don't, they come back to the US and then get into whether it's Indy or, truck or NASCAR of some sort, but that experience and exposure gives them the opportunity to even come back here and go into those. And so I do feel like there's still a difficulty, and especially when you don't have the funds being seen for just talent versus how much money you can spend in finding those different ways. I mean, we've even talked about exploring other opportunities in dirt racing just for different types of exposure, for learning a different craft in the racing scene. And and seeing where that can take him to just make him a more well-rounded driver.
Yeah, I think you both answered that so well, and it really comes from the fact that your parents who are not coming from this uber wealthy community where you can self-finance all of this, you are having to be very thoughtful, strategic about how do you manage this potential within him and his craft. And I think it's so wise that you're even looking at other disciplines so that, as you said, well-roundedness. And it really, I say John, Dick, and I, we all agree that it's not there yet. And we want it to get there, where parents like you are able to do this with a much more clarity, and the sacrifice that you're making even locally, it's a huge leap to go to Europe and what that means for you all as a family. And I take the optimism, Matt, that you have, that the Europeans and other people from around the globe are coming here and we're welcoming them. I would hope that we could find a way to for that reverse to happen more than we know it happens, but happen at a greater level. Dick, do you feel like I'm saying
Yep.
this well, or do you want to add in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for somebody like Braden, I mean, ideally, I personally, and this is just me speaking as a racer who cares about a young driver, right? But, I would love to see him in an F4 car here in the next year or so and racing here in the States, assuming that he ran up front and all that, it becomes a much easier sell to then say, okay, next summer you're going to be over in the UK running in the Formula 4 series over there in the UK. That would be the career path that I would love to see Brayden take. And with each season, once you get into cars, it's kind of sink or swim. As long as he's got the talent and the work ethic to get there, then, he'll continue to swim. And I think
Yeah.
that's the case for every young driver. That to me would seem like a very natural program for him.
Yeah, and I hope the audience will pick up on this. I think that what you just said, he has the building blocks of that, because
Oh
we're
yeah.
seeing it every day. And even by what all three of you have shared, is I don't question your work ethic or desire to push to the limit and develop the craft. It's now just the cards coming into play. And so hopefully it will. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I feel like we could have so many more conversations. So hopefully you guys can, in your very busy lives, at some point in the future, probably come back and give us updates, maybe other topics that we could cover. I can't say thank you enough for your level of candor and just sharing your inspiring story and just being an example to so many of us as to why we want to see this sport continue and see people like you thrive in it. Dick, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think you said it very well. This has been just a wonderful conversation, literally among friends. And so I hope our audience enjoys this as much as certainly I enjoyed having it. So speaking selfishly.
Awesome. Well, do you guys, I want to make sure if there's anything else you wanted to add, you're welcome to.
It's been great to be on here. I definitely would love to come back, and I hope the audience loves what we've been talking about today, and it's been great to be on here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will say one last thing is we're going to make sure and put like your links on our episode information. And so we would love for our audience to just follow Braden and whatever way on socials, go onto the website, support them through their store. And if you want to connect with them, also feel free to reach out through their information that we'll post. Or as always, you can reach out to us and we'll connect you. Anybody who's out there who wants to help a young racer get further along in his dream. I know Amy and Matt would be really grateful for support in that way too. So with that, let me say thanks for this conversation, and hopefully we'll have many more.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, what did you think of our conversation? Drop me a line via email, sabrina@2guysaGirlandF1.com. Can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. And with that, let me say, we'll keep talking and you can keep listening in, because we're just 2 guys, a girl, and F1. For John, Dick, and me, Sabrina, thanks for listening.